Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Line update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with constant real-time odds in action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA, college basketball, the NHL, and even UFC. Head to betonline.ag today and don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. State of State is presented by BetOnline. The game starts here. Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State. I'm Tom Hannafin. Justin King is back with us. There is so much to get to on this edition. We have transfer portal news, Penn State players that have entered the transfer portal, players that Penn State is looking at in the transfer portal, could potentially be future Nittany Lions. We're going to dive into the variety of names, people visiting campus, visiting the team in the coming days and in the past week. Also, Penn State's 2025 schedule is out. Penn State safety KJ Winston has declared for the NFL draft, and also Tyler Warren being snubbed from the Heisman Trophy Ceremony in New York City was not one of the four that was invited. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. But before we do, I want to tell you a little bit about Future Fans. Future Fans is a new brand that helps little kids become big sports fans through storybook-led activity boxes that help them understand a sport. The goal is to introduce the core concepts of a sport like football in ways that make sense to a kid. So, for example, instead of explaining something like the downs in football directly, which is difficult enough to explain to an adult that might not have any understanding of the sport, with Future Fans in their football product box, there's a beanbag toss game that has things like 4 tries and 6 points embedded into it. And then later, the storybook connects that to football. Justin, you're a parent. You have certainly worked with kids throughout your life in terms of educating them on football and just trying to explain the sport to the lay person. Future Fans seems like something that's genius in terms of helping kids and families really connect over this sport.
Early development and using sports as a catalyst is something that you can bank on in personal development. It's something that I truly believe in. Got a business around it with LIG Sports Group. And something like this is incredibly important because if you're teaching a kid the concepts to be a fan or even work in the business or even play the sport, to understand it from a macro level and a fun way is a really cool a way of learning a sport rather than just kind of picking it up from your parents watching TV or something of that nature, and like really learning the nuts and bolts of it. And you can probably birth a lot of future fans and coaches from that game. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Now, Future Fans is designed for kids, specifically ages 4 to 8, and the football fan adult in their life. It's only $49.99 at futurefans.com, and you can get a 15% off discount with the code Penn State, all one word, PENNSTATE. That's 15% off at futurefans.com. All right, Justin, let's get to a variety of topics as Penn State is still obviously preparing for their first round matchup in the college football playoff. That's going to be on Saturday, December 21st at noon Eastern on TNT. Penn State hosting SMU at Beaver Stadium. Is going to be an electric atmosphere, but while this preparation is going on, there's about a billion other things happening. I want to start with the transfer portal. And there's a variety of names that Penn State is looking at, and I'm very curious to get your observation on these players. You and I talk about it all the time. Is this person a game changer at their position group or for the team in general? Or is this person filling a need within the depth chart? I think those are fair reasons to go into the transfer portal. I'd like to start off with arguably the most high-profile player that Penn State has looked at, former Georgia and now former USC defensive tackle Bear Alexander is coming for a visit this weekend to State College. Bear Alexander is a name that you and I discussed last offseason cycle before he committed to USC, and is a really interesting subject. Is this colossal human being, obviously a tremendous amount of hype around him coming out of high school. However, the knock on him is that he attended 4 high schools in 4 years, and he's basically looking at his third college in 3 years. What's your feeling on Bear Alexander, I think personally and professionally?
That's a huge red flag. I think anytime that you have instability with a player, whatever the reason may be, is something that you don't want to hang your hat on. He plays a premium position, right? In this day and age of the transfer portal and talent acquisition being at a premium, and being able to really stop the run, that's just a critical thing. But we talk about ability being, or not ability, but availability being the best ability in the sport, and he's someone that has shown to be unreliable, right? So like, even when we're thinking about that and you're just going through that whole evaluation process, sure, he's talented, he's got leverage from the sense of like just God-given abilities, but like when you're building out a program and things like where families are looking for stability in a program, which you can kind of benefit yourself, I think programs will need to be looking for stability in a player as well. So that's my kind of take on his situation and him. I wouldn't pound the table for him, but you take a flyer and don't invest much in him and see what happens.
It feels like Penn State kicking the tires, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, and that's what I'm trying to realize. Like, he's a high value target that you have to entertain. So it's like, but you have to really evaluate and scrutinize it the right way.
I think the bigger thing is there's that, you and I always talk about Penn State looking for guys that fit the program, that fit the Penn State way, so to speak. And it's, are you recruiting those guys who are going to fit and be great teammates? You know, we talk about the way Saquon Barkley was just this humble superstar, the way that Tyler Warren, James Franklin talked about how he's just this incredible teammate. And that's the type of thing they look for. Bear Alexander, not saying he's a bad teammate by any means, but it's like this much volatility, fluctuation. It is concerning. It is a big red flag in my mind. And is it something to you that's maybe a signal of Penn State being like, hey, we're willing to entertain this because of the talent, even if there are some character issues where it's like, hey, we might need to babysit a little bit?
I mean, I think when you say like the Penn State way, right? The Penn State player, I think like when we talk about stripping up the brands nowadays, it's the head coach, right? Like the James Franklin way and culture that he builds, and do they fit within that to be able to execute his philosophy and his approach to the game. And I think that just comes down to, like knowing who you are as a team from an identity standpoint, being authentic in that evaluation, and understanding where you can give and take, because there's risks everywhere in talent acquisition. Like, even if you use analytics, if you understand someone down, you're recruiting a guy and know him for 4 or 5 years, whatever the case may be, there's still a risk reward that comes with a player. So just understanding that if you set that scale the right way and bring in the players, because I do think it does matter that a player wants to be with a program, right? I think it's going to be interesting what we see at North Carolina, not to jump off that, with Bill Belichick, because I think instead of him selecting players, he's going to attract more players that want to be coached by Bill Belichick and follow that way. And then when those coaches get players that want to, hang their hat on every single play, those are programs that do win. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I mean, it's a critical piece of this whole game, but it's a fine line, because sometimes you want to take those flyers on maybe the outliers that are just complete game changers, right? Like I think the New York Giants, I think they lost jobs, but they're kicking themselves because you don't recognize the actual game changer, and you let them leave, and you see what happens to another franchise. But I think that's the game that we have to play in the transfer portal, and you have to be authentic to yourself and your actual offense and defensive philosophy and how you want to approach the game.
Last thing on Bear Alexander, to the point you were just making, we've seen so little of what he potentially can be. USC banged up and dropped out of the lineup midway through the season, roughly, was in the rotation at Georgia. Does Bear Alexander have the ability to be a game changer, or is that kind of like still yet to be proven?
It's yet to be proven, right? But the one thing about football, where you talk about it's being a genetic and trait-based sport, when we talk about physics being one of the number one, the top priorities that kind of override technique and discipline and hard work and all those different type of things. If this guy is 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds and can move and has dancing feet and is powerful, if that light ever comes on, he surpasses everyone else, right? And coaches know that, and that's what I'm saying. When someone has those physics favorites, like physics
those
favorites,
traits,
right?
those
traits, right? Because it's the traits, but like it's the athletic and volume altogether, right? Like once you have those things and that thing can kind of bust out of its cocoon, you do have to sometimes take a flyer on it. And at the defensive line position, those guys are so rare that you just have to have a culture that hopefully, if it doesn't work and he's just not a culture fit, that the culture kicks it out as fast as possible. But I think that's what's shown in his history when he's been at 8 different schools in the past 8 years.
It's a lot. And defensive tackle is a position of need for Penn State, at least in 2025. And that Hakeem Beamon has left the program, was a regular contributor. Devon J. Thomas, because is our older guys, veteran guys that aren't going to be around. And you have Zane Durant. I hope Zane potentially could go into the draft. He's talented enough, but I don't expect him to. You need to build depth at that position. Also, defensive tackle T.A. Cunningham has entered the transfer portal. Penn State Nittany Lion, member of the class of 2024. I want to get to him in just a second, but another defensive tackle target for Penn State in the transfer portal is Louisiana Tech defensive tackle David Blay. He's being hosted by Penn State this weekend, 6'4", 305 pounds. This season at La Tech, 46 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, best on the team there, 6.5 sacks, best on the team there. Played in 12 games within Conference USA play for Louisiana Tech. 12 games this year total, excuse me. Blay has 1 year of eligibility remaining. Florida State has offered Blay. Blay spent 2 years at Westchester University, Westchester College or University, I can't remember, but right down the road from where I live in Pennsylvania. So 2 years at Westchester and then 2 years at Louisiana Tech, making that jump from Division II to FBS, and now could be making an even bigger jump from Conference USA potentially to the Big Ten. Any feelings on Blay?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of wait and see. Like when guys haven't produced or done much in the college game, it's just kind of wait and see. I mean, that's what's so tough about the transfer portal is it's a very dark and gloomy place without any proven record of success.
Decent stats this year at Louisiana Tech, but obviously it would be a jump in competition. That is, I mentioned T.A. Cunningham. Yeah. T.A. Cunningham only spent 1 year with Penn State and now is off into the transfer portal. What were your thoughts when you heard about that?
I mean, either a guy's not patient or he just sees the writing on the wall that he's not good enough to play there. I think those are the only type of reasons that you jump in the portal. I think the portal is just a tricky situation. If you're not getting offered any money and you can't get out in 24 hours, like Saban said, you're in the portal for a reason. So now everyone has to kind of go through that evaluation and background check of like, why are you in the portal? And if you haven't done anything, it's like, why does someone need to take a flyer on you? Now we're talking about roster limits and a lot of different things that come up in terms of managing a roster, right? And yeah, you can't take duds. And I don't know. I'm saying all to say is that, like, yeah, if you're not jumping in, if you're just jumping in to see if you can land on a team, it's a dark time out here. So see what happens. Hopefully he lands at a spot. But I mean, it's one of those two things. You don't have patience or sees the writing on the wall that's not a good fit for his future.
There is a lot of competition at that position. Ty Blanding is somebody who Penn State has started to rotate in there. I mentioned all the names that are already on the team. Alonzo Ford, the transfer from, I believe it was Old Dominion, got injured this year and is out for, I think, the remainder of the season. So hoping that hoping the best for Ford, I guess, in that respect. So kind of looking at that position, there's going to be competition in 2025, but for whatever reason, it seems so much now, Justin, that it's like players trying to sell their stock while it's high. And T.A. Cunningham, obviously a good evaluation coming out of high school. You're not getting the opportunity at Penn State. Are you going to go into the transfer portal and be like, man, Georgia's going to pick me up tomorrow? It's like, no, you might drop down a little bit, but you've got to continue to sell high with your stock. And I even look at Malik Murphy, the quarterback just recently at Duke, the year before that at Texas. He's back in the transfer portal, had a good year at Duke, got out of a crowded quarterback room at Texas. So you're relying on that previous evaluation to be like, this is what I'm worth. And then you go and put it on tape at Duke, for instance, and now he's back in the portal trying to sell even higher than he was before. So that's kind of the game that's being played. But is anybody being developed and actually getting better and making their teams better? I think that's a huge question in all this.
I think there's the game being played, and a lot of people play that game, and then there's the fundamentals of the business. I mean, I think there's the one and the two. Like I've seen a lot of player life cycles. So like this whole thing of being able to move and new situations, like you have to learn a new system, you have to get acclimated, there's a lot of different things that kind of pick up and revamping. I don't like the even comparison with like, hey, coaches can leave and go to another place. Like I hate to tell people and break it to them, but like, like coaches are more valuable than like college players. But even from that standpoint, when you're jumping in the portal, I understand selling high when you get a chance and doing all those different type of things, but you're selling high for what reason? Like because you're not developing or you're not being able to play. And but that's why I said, if you're going in the portal for money because people are offering you money, I think that's a different reason. I mean, because now you have leverage to negotiate with your school, or now it's like the free market. I'm not against the free market. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm speaking for the players that are jumping in the portal thinking that the grass is greener or even for $100,000 and it's not a better situation for your total development if you want to play on Sundays. You know what I mean? And so like there's a lot of different nuanced pieces that make a transfer portal acquisition a win, and for like a player to go through the transfer portal and come out on the other side. And that typically takes 2 to 3 years after it happens. So, but gotta be patient and wait and see.
There's a story out there about Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers potentially having an offer of $4 million to transfer to a Big Ten team for next season for his last year of eligibility. It sounds like he's not going to go in the draft. Arch Manning is the specter looming there at Texas, so he could be forced out. But then it's also that game in the media of like, hey, the portal closes on December 28th, and Texas is in the college football playoff. Is it a situation where it's like, I'm trying to force their hand to pay me now?
That's about right. I think $4 million is actually about what he's worth. And then now him having leverage to say like, all right, what's the open market or what do you want to do, Texas? I think that's just, that's what's up. Like that's a completely different situation. That's a player that has kind of won. He got to the end of the Squid Games, and now he gets to kind of make his call. And like that's the benefit that players have in this golden age of college athletics that I hope they recognize that they can fully take advantage of if they prepare and move the right way. Because I'm speaking to the players that think they have the leverage that Quinn Ewers has, and they do not. And it's
Great point.
And it's a completely different landscape. The phone calls get picked up a little bit different. It's a different journey. So like having that chance to come up here and play at Texas or whatever he's trying to do. Yeah, man, stay in college for another year and make $4 million and develop and get that snap count up so you can then go to the NFL, have a rookie season like Jaden Daniels, right? Like, are you seeing the quarterback success of the younger guys that played longer and transferred in college, where they're again getting that snap count up in order to make that transition smoother.
All right. Red light, green light here. Squid Games. No, I'm kidding. The red light, green light for some wide receiver targets that Penn State is looking at in the transfer portal. I always love talking about this, so apologies for getting off on a tangent there, but back to people that Penn State is targeting. FIU wide receiver Eric Rivers. He's one of the hotter wide receiver names in the portal right now. He's going to visit Penn State next week, along with visits planned to Miami, Florida, that is Colorado and Nebraska. In 2024, Rivers had 62 catches, 1,172 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns. He averaged roughly 19 yards per catch and a long of 62. FIU is also in Conference USA. Rivers has 1 year of eligibility remaining. He started his collegiate career at Memphis. I'm always super cautious when it comes to wide receivers now, as we've seen over the last few years. Julian Fleming, I think it's fair to call that a dud. Dante Cephas, that was a dud. Dante Cephas coming from the MAC, obviously, so it's a little bit more comparable. And there's another MAC receiver that Penn State's looking at where I kind of was like, but we'll get to that in a second. But you and I talked about it briefly a few weeks ago about Kevin Concepcion, the wide receiver from NC State, high-profile guy, high productivity for that team at that level. Rivers, kind of a similar story. Do you think he's a game changer?
Possibly, right? Like, I mean, he's at a lot of tech. He's shown to have some explosive traits, but possibly. Like, I don't watch enough of these other guys in the portal.
You're not watching FIU tape every weekend?
You know what I mean? So it's like there's some guys we get a chance to watch, and it's like, you know, if they jump in the portal, is that. But like, I'm not going to act like I've into the depths of the college football scouting to know like the FIU guy. But from his stats, he seems to have some explosive traits and ability to make big plays. So, man, see what happens there.
That was my worry with this, because Cephas was a similar story. Oh, look at the numbers, and you know, granted, it was at the MAC level, so it's similar but different. So I was like, you know.
See, I had context of Cephas and Julian Fleming coming out of high school. So it's like the player is the player. So, you know, depending on where they are. And sometimes it is good to get a guy that's from somewhere else. And then it's like, how are those yards, you know, created or gained? Because that's always a key thing in the evaluation, is the what and the how. Like, you're going to have a lot of yards, and if you're not creating separation, we're going to have the same problems that we already had. So you want to kind of fill in those traits, those explosive traits, to be able to, you know, keep that offense loose, have someone for Drew to throw it to down the field.
Another wide receiver target for Penn State in the portal, Miami of Ohio wide receiver Reggie Virgil. So this is the one I'm apprehensive about. 6'4", 190 pounds. So you like the size. 3 seasons as a wide receiver at Miami within the MAC. This year, Virgil caught 41 passes for 878 yards and 9 touchdowns, roughly 20 yards per catch, a long of 75. Was a two-way player in high school and a 3-sport athlete as well, football, basketball, and track. Has 1 year of eligibility remaining, but Virgil has become one of the hotter wide receiver commodities in the portal. Allegedly has offers already from Oklahoma, UTSA, Texas Tech, Pitt, Florida, Michigan State, Florida State, Miami, Florida, UCF, Illinois, Georgia Tech, West Virginia, and Arkansas. Again, another MAC wide receiver. I have the ghost of Dante Cephas living in the back of my brain. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you said MAC receiver. I mean, nothing against the MAC. It's, again, if he's an explosive guy, he's an explosive guy. I mean, if he's explosive, I'm for it. If he's not, then I'm hesitant. So I think that's my overall take on all of it.
Another target for Penn State in the transfer portal, moving to offensive line, Utah State right tackle Teague Anderson, a sophomore, 6'5", 305 pounds, great size, had offers from FAU, Marshall, Baylor, and Indiana entering college, chose Utah State as he's from Utah, so a chance to stay home. Houston, Mizzou, Kansas State, and NC State have all expressed interest, along with Penn State. Redshirted in 2022. He played in 12 of 13 games for the Aggies this season, starting 7 of them at right tackle. Utah State within the Mountain West Conference has 3 years remaining of eligibility. I think this is interesting because Phil Trautwein loves to cross-train offensive linemen. So just because he played right tackle does not mean that is what he is forever and ever. Theoretically, Penn State could bring him in and cross-train him at every position along the offensive line. So one, never hurts to have depth. Specifically at right tackle, Anthony Donko going down. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. Could that roll into the 2025 season? Not entirely sure. That's dubbed a long-term injury by James Franklin. And right now, Nolan Rucci, the transfer from Wisconsin, is playing well, but he is even somebody that Penn State looked at as somebody they were interested in high school and decided to go to Wisconsin, got him back, a legacy, his father having played at Penn State. And Rucci is a long-term project still, which I think is fair to say, but he's doing well right now. This feels like a depth add if Anderson were to transfer to Penn State. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, sure. But you need it, right? Like you have to create competition amongst the group. And I think that's what it kind of brings anytime that you have some type of veteran presence in that position group. It helps iron sharpen iron.
I think you need as much depth considering Sal Wormley is going to be out soon. Nick Dawkins also going to be out soon. Congratulations, Nick Dawkins, winning the Werfel Award for all of his work in the community. Well deserved. Looking around, I mentioned T.A. Cunningham. You and I talked a little bit about Jerry Cross, tight end for Penn State, entering the transfer portal. Not a whole lot, I think, really to discuss there other than what we already have talked about. Just I think especially seeing what Penn State did on National Signing Day of bringing in, 62 more tight ends. It's like assembly line keeps rolling.
I mean, some of those tight ends might turn offensive tackles. You never know. That's
true. That's true. Some non-transfer portal news. Penn State safety KJ Winston has declared for the NFL draft. KJ Winston injured in September. I continue to think, man, what could have been with the 3 safety system that Tom Allen envisioned with Zakee Wheatley, Jalen Reed, and KJ Winston. I mean, I thought on paper that was the best safety room in America. Wheatley and Reed have played really good football this year. So it's been amazing just to see that someone as talented as KJ dropped out of the lineup and the safety position was still extremely productive and extremely good. KJ Winston, not sure if there's anything you can add in terms of his injury status. But how do you feel about him deciding to go into the draft, considering he is coming off of an injury? And then also, what do you think about the future of the safety position at Penn State?
Very good football player. I'm always for guys jumping into the league, even if it's a little premature. He, coming off of an injury, I think he's had his mind kind of in this preparation mode for it. It always sucks and it's a little scary when you do have somewhat of an injury in college to kind of be like, all right, I'm not going to come back and risk this happening again, whatever the parameters are around that injury. But then it's, moving forward, they've been doing a great job developing safeties and from a recruiting standpoint, from the success that they've had with safeties going off to the NFL. So I think they're going to be fine moving forward with the development with Coach Poindexter back there. But I mean, I'm happy for him. Congratulations to KJ. Next stage, and keep it pushing. But I think he's going to be one of those players that has best footballers in his future years. I mean, because he didn't get to his ceiling here at Penn State, obviously because of the injury, but he's a physical specimen, and he's going to fit right in the NFL.
Do you think it's kind of Micah Parsons-esque in terms of like you could see it at Penn State, you could see it in college, but it won't fully be realized until the pros?
Yeah, I would say Micah's probably an extreme case. Yeah, I mean, but Micah was still like explosive. I mean, Micah was pretty crazy. He just had the COVID year at Penn State. But KJ, yeah, I think there's going to be some opportunities for him to really show like how explosive, big, fast, and good of a football player he is when he gets into the NFL, just based on his rare physical traits and matched up with the football stuff. His stock is only going to continue to go up.
Couple other subjects. I want to get to the 2025 schedule announcement, but Tyler Warren not being invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. The 4 players that were invited: Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel, wide receiver / cornerback from Colorado Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State, and then Miami, Florida quarterback Cam Ward. None of those names are shocking to me. They all, I feel, deserve to be there. I've said it before. There are 2 unicorns in this sport this season. It's Travis Hunter and it's Tyler Warren. So I can understand not bloating this field to 5, but it feels like a snub. What do you think?
Yeah, you can say that. I mean, you can't say Genty's not an exceptional talent this year.
Oh, I agree with that entirely.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the Heisman. Yeah, I guess you could say it's a snub. It's a snub, but I don't think it's egregious. I can understand like how they got there again, a tight end, but where Penn State is going into the playoffs and the whole situation, it would have been nice, but it is what it is.
Tough for a tight end to even get consideration
Right,
for the Heisman.
100%.
Last but not least, Penn State has announced their 2025 football schedule. As a fan, the home schedule is a little thin, in my opinion. Penn State will be at home for its first 4 games of the season versus Nevada versus the aforementioned FIU, so you can see a lot more of them. You don't have to go all the way to Pitbull Stadium down there in Florida to see them.
Pitbull Stadium.
September 13th at home against Villanova. September 27th against Oregon. That's going to be the one everybody is circling. And I can already hear the argument of that should be a whiteout. I hope Fox doesn't pick that game up. So, like, we'll be talking about that for another 8 months, I'm sure. Can't wait for that. Then Penn State is at UCLA October 4th, October 11th, back home versus Northwestern. This is where the schedule's tough. At Iowa, at Ohio State, versus Indiana at home. You're fortunate there. And then the back end of the season, a little bit lighter, but still there are no gimmies in this conference. At Michigan State on November 15th, home against Nebraska on November 22nd. I'm excited to see that matchup. And then November 29th at Rutgers to end the season. How you feel about the schedule?
It's somewhat favorable. I don't know. I mean, it's from an excitement thing, but it's cool. It's a schedule. It's good.
Schedule.
It's the schedule. I mean,
The Oregon home game, depending on where both Penn State and Oregon finish within the playoff, I mean, just based on what we saw in the Big Ten title game, that could be a really cool game. And I'm interested to see what Oregon is post Dylan Gabriel offensively. I don't think they fall off a cliff necessarily, but what does this team look like in 2025?
they might go back Quinn Ewers. You never know. Go buy themselves a quarterback. Instead of Big Ten team.
Well, they have a quarterback that they got the transfer from UCLA.
You have to
Dante
have,
Moore.
you have to have competition.
Yeah, I think they have a quarterback in waiting that they like, but Quinn Ewers.
They don't like him that much.
Who knows? Could be a smokescreen from Ewers because he wants to stay in Austin. Who knows? But that stretch that I mentioned, October 18th at Iowa, playing at Kinnick, never a slam dunk, period. At Ohio State on November 1st, November 8th at home against Indiana. I'm very curious to see if Kurt Cignetti and the Hoosiers are more than a one-hit wonder. I think that's going to be
an exciting thing to see. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us. A lot of news and notes. And of course, we're so looking forward to Penn State versus SMU. How are you feeling about that matchup now that we're roughly a week away from the start of the playoff?
I feel good about it. It's a good matchup again, but they're an explosive team. Going to spread us out. Got to be able to tackle the guys. No explosive plays. But I feel good about the matchup. I feel like, I mean, just from the draw of the whole playoff, I think we ended up in the best seed. But again, these guys are going to be coming ready to play. And now it's the playoffs and this bracketology in football. You never know. You know what I mean? So you gotta look at it like December Madness.
We will have a full game preview of Penn State versus SMU this coming Wednesday right here on State of State. We cannot wait to see the beginning of the college football playoff. Could Penn State make a run? We're going to find out. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by Bet Online and by Blue White Outfitters.